In my most recent winter forecast videos, I've gotten a lot of questions about how much snowfall you can expect to see for your location in the United States this winter season. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into how much snowfall you can expect to see this winter season of 2024 to 2025. And overall, we're going to be going into some deeper aspects such as the snowfall anomaly and the reason why we could see these totals this winter. All of this and more, all coming up in just a bit. Now, before we get into the main part of the forecast, I do want to go over the background information of why we could see these totals this winter. So some of the patterns that we're going to be going over in today's video that are main contributors that I believe will affect your snowfall this season are the NAO, the AO, the La Nina, and the QBO. Now, I do want you to know that there are plenty more patterns that go into how your snowfall is affected in the winter season, but for the sake of time in today's video, we're just going to be focusing on these ones as I believe they're going to be the main contributors to your snowfall totals this season. All right, now starting off here, we're taking a look at that QBO pattern that we mentioned earlier, and this is basically a defining factor of what kind of temperature anomalies and precipitation anomalies you're going to be expecting throughout the United States, whether it's in an easterly phase or a westerly phase. Now, I want you to pay attention to the graph. Now, this may look a little confusing to you, but I'm going to summarize it for you. So basically what we're seeing right now is we're expecting a westerly phase, which when the QBO is in a westerly phase, we're expecting warmer temperatures along the eastern side of the United States, especially along the mid-Atlantic, and then we are expecting a little cooler conditions along the west. Now in the easterly phase, this would be an inverse, and we'd actually see the opposite. So this is going to be contributing to those warmer temperatures that we're going to be talking about for much of the eastern United States that will likely hinder some of your snowfall totals this season. Now the next pattern that we're looking at is our NAO index, and basically this is kind of similar to the QBO, but this isn't in a westerly phase or an easterly phase. We talk about this in the terms of a neutral, a negative, or a positive. And as you can see right now, when it's above the line along that axis right there, we see that this is a positive phase. And if you look throughout the last couple weeks there, we've actually been in a positive phase for quite some time now. And even throughout the times we've been negative, we have been staying pretty neutral. Then this is pretty standard, neutral is pretty standard. But what we want to pay attention to are those trends that we're seeing. So we are expecting to stay relatively positive this winter. And when we're in a positive phase, that keeps things warmer along the eastern United States and a little cooler in the west. So kind of talking about a negative PNA pattern. Now we're not going to go too much into the PNA, but basically when you have a negative PNA, that contributes to cooler conditions in the west and warmer conditions in the east. So we're kind of seeing that trend here with these patterns, and we're overall seeing that we could see warmer conditions in the east and a little cooler conditions in the west, depending on where you are. And overall, that could hinder or even influence your snowfall in a positive direction, depending on what side of the United States you're on in this pattern. Now, taking a look at our next pattern, this looks a little similar to the last graph-wise, but we are looking at the AO index, or the Arctic oscillation. Now, the Arctic oscillation is basically how far south we'll be seeing those cooler conditions. That's kind of a summarization, a very general summarization at that. But what we're seeing right now is that we're looking at potential for some negative action. So we've been seeing a little bit of a positive peak there, a little bit of dips in the negative some past weeks, but overall, we're looking to stay relatively neutral with this. And I do believe that's going to stay fairly neutral this winter. So overall, nothing too serious there. We're not going to be seeing extreme deep Arctic waves. Now, if you're further north in the north central United States, if you look at my winter forecast that I've been doing, we have been seeing some very cold trends in the central United States, where we see a lot of cold air coming into those areas, some strong, potent cold air, and I do believe that's going to be an active season for you. However, for much of the eastern United States, we are looking to keep things relatively warmer and overall pretty mild for your snowfall. Now, on our final graph here, we're taking a look at the commonly heard La Nina. Now, as you know, there's La Nina, there's ENSO neutral, and there's El Nino, but currently we're projected to go towards a La Nina throughout the peak of winter. And then if you see there with the gray on that plot, we actually are expecting to go more neutral towards the spring, but we're not going to focus on that for today's video. We're going to focus solely on the La Nina and how that's beginning to uptrend into this winter. So the La Nina is going to influence a little more active precipitation in the northwest United States, in the Pacific Northwest, and then also up in the northeastern United States, as well as the Great Lakes region there. So we are expecting some pretty active precipitation patterns for you guys. Now down to the south and throughout the mid-Atlantic, even up in the portions of the central mid-Atlantic there, we are expecting some drier conditions conditions overall. So we are expecting warmer and drier conditions, and that's going to influence your winter overall for your snowfall. So we're expecting some slightly less snowfall for you guys. If you do see snowfall in a typical winter season, it's likely going to be less than what you are typically expecting. And obviously, if you're up in those northern areas, you're going to be seeing some more, depending on if you're in any of those regions that I listed. All right, now to summarize this up in a map, we're taking a look at our snowfall anomaly forecast map. And what this map is designed to tell you is whether you're expecting above average, normal, or below average snowfall. So we're going to take off to the Pacific Northwest first in that light blue region there. So this region is indicated by slightly above average snowfall. And what you're expecting for the season is not a lot more, but overall some slight uptrends in your snowfall. You may see a little bit more overall, and you may notice it's a little more snowy, but nothing too extreme there. Now we also see the same scenario over here for portions of the central United States, the north central United States, and over into portions of the Great Lakes and the far western northeast there. So we see for these areas, you're also expecting that uptrend in snowfall, especially around the Great Lakes. We do see that. And overall, nothing too extreme there for the light blue, but you are likely going to notice a little uptrend in your snowfall this season. Now moving back up there to the Pacific Northwest, we do see that dark blue region there. And what this signifies is above average snowfall. So again, these areas are very snowy, especially up in the Cascade Mountains there. But when we're looking at this season, we are expecting above average conditions on top of that. So we're expecting cooler temperatures and above average precipitation. So these combined factors are going to lead to some increased snowfall, and I do believe you're going to notice a pretty big change in a positive direction for your snowfall totals. Now we also see that same scenario going on over for portions of the central United States, the Midwest, and the Great Lakes. We see all of these areas around the Great Lakes are in that above average zone, often due to lake effect snow. I do believe that's going to be a big contributor to your season, but also we see an active jet stream pattern where we're going to see some deep troughing in this area, and that's going to lead to some active winter storm development. We're going to see a lot of that lee cyclogenesis developing off of the Rockies, and that leads to low pressure systems forming that are going to bring stormy conditions winter-wise. So winter storms up through this area and into the Great Lakes, interacting with that Great Lakes moisture, and obviously lake effect can play into that as well, even during those systems. So overall, a pretty active winter for you guys up here if you do live in that region. Now moving on down to the southwest, we do see a yellow region there, and this is for areas that typically do see snowfall in the southwestern United States. So for these areas here, mostly encompassed by higher elevations, but the further you get into New Mexico, where you get those deeper troughs in the west, we do see a little active snowfall there, where the temperatures typically get colder during the winter. And we do see we're expecting slightly below average. So again, we're talking about that slightly decreased precipitation for much of these areas, and then we do see those slightly above average temperatures interacting with that as well. That's obviously not a good condition for snowfall, so we're expecting some slight decrease in your snowfall totals. Now we also see the same story for portions of the Smoky Mountains all the way up through New England and along the coastline. Now this is due to a little different pattern. So you're not expecting slightly less precipitation, okay? We are expecting a pretty active jet stream to move through this area, so a lot of your precipitation may be encompassed by mixed precipitation. You still are going to see snowfall depending on where you live. Obviously, if you live further south, you may not see snowfall, but the further north you go, you're still going to see snowfall this winter, but you're likely going to notice a slight decrease in your snowfall totals. Now this is due to the Atlantic being above average right now. So we see sea surface temperatures at the Atlantic surface is going to be very warm this winter, and that's going to lead to a lot of surface temperatures that are warmer than average. So we are expecting some warmer conditions along the coastline there, and overall throughout the mid-Atlantic. I do believe the further south you go down towards the mid-Atlantic, you are going to see some slightly drier trends. I don't think it's going to be so much as slightly below average precipitation, but maybe a little less than what you're talking about. So we might be aiming more towards that slightly below average precipitation region the further south you go in that region. But overall, you're still expecting around near normal precipitation, just not so much in the snowfall form. All right, now in our final forecast map, this is the map that will tell you how much snowfall you're projected to see. Now there are two regions on this map that are not listed on that legend, and I do need you to pay attention if you do want to know what those mean, because the first region that we're going to be going over is the gray region down throughout much of the southern United States and along the Pacific coastline. So this area, I'm expecting you to have little chance to see snowfall. So that doesn't mean you're not going to see any snowfall. Obviously, the further south you go towards the Gulf Coast or further south in the southwest, you're going to see a less likelihood of snowfall. Typically, you don't see snowfall in your winter season, but overall, overall, if you do live in this region, I'm not really expecting you to have a very good chance at seeing snowfall this winter. This doesn't mean it's not going to happen, especially for those of you who live, let's say, up in northern Arkansas or northern Oklahoma. That doesn't mean you're not going to see any snowfall, but overall, I do believe it's going to be a little less of a likelihood that you're going to see snowfall this winter season. Now, moving on to that light blue region, it's very hard to notice because this is a very small area on the map, but if you do live in this light blue region here, you're going to be seeing less than 1 inch. So I do believe that really, overall, your chance of getting greater than an inch of snowfall this season is going to be very low. I think we're going to keep that relatively an inch or under for your winter season. Now, in that slightly darker blue region there, the next one up, we do see 1 to 2 inches. Again, kind of a hard region to spot on the map. It's very small, but if you do see over there for portions of Tennessee and Kentucky, I do believe a lot of your season is going to be encompassed by that 1 to 2 inches. So again, not really too much of a chance for you to see snowfall there. This might even be spread out by dusting, so you might not notice too much accumulation there for your winter season, but overall 1 to 2 inches is what you're expecting. Now for that next blue region up, we do see 2 to 3 inches. This is what you're expecting for your season, and it's kind of a hard region to spot. There's not really any well-defined areas to see it, but if you notice you're in that thin strand, it's going to be kind of 2 to 3 inches. Now moving up there to the darkest blue region there, that's the darkest blue that we have on the legend. This is 3 to 6 inches. So we do have some areas up in the mid-Atlantic, especially around the Philadelphia area. I do believe you're going to be seeing those 3 to 6 inches. So again, this might be spread out over the course of dusting, so you might not notice some big accumulations. This doesn't mean it's going to happen all at once, but overall, I do believe if you're going to see any snowfall this season, it's going to be around 3 to 6 inches for your winter season. Now, moving on to that pinkish purple region, we do see 6 to 8 inches. This is a widespread area you can see there for much of the central United States, and even up into portions of those valleys around the Rocky Mountains and in between the Sierra Nevadas, we do see 6 to 8 inches is around what you're expecting for your winter season. Now, moving on to that hot pink region, we do see 8 to 12 inches. This is what you're expecting. So anywhere from 8 inches to a foot is really what you're expecting for this winter season. Now on our bright pink region, we do see a foot up to 18 inches, so just under 2 feet. So you're really going to be between a foot and around 2 feet of snowfall. So that's kind of what you're looking at for your season. This is another hard region to pinpoint, so it's not really visible on the map. But overall, if you do live in this region, that's what I'm expecting you to see this season. All right, now on our bright red region, we do see 18 to 24 inches. So this is anywhere from 18 inches to 2 feet of snow. And this is another hard region to spot, but you do see some spotty areas such as north central Montana. We do see some areas in the southwestern United States, and we do see some thin strands along through the Ohio Valley where you see that. Overall, that's what I'm expecting for your season. Now in that darker red region, we do see 24 to 30 inches. So this is kind of where that change begins to happen, where if you're in this region, I do believe you're going to have a higher likelihood to see some pretty big winter systems come through, because obviously we're adding up to those larger totals. So we're likely going to see some bigger systems come through rather than small snowfall events. But that doesn't mean every single system that goes through is going to bring massive amounts of snowfall. You can see here this includes portions of the central United States, western Kansas, Nebraska, and southern Iowa. We see all those areas there in that darker red region. Now in the darkest red region there on the Legion, this is 30 to 36 inches. So you can see this encompasses much of the Midwest. We do see northeastern Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa, and even up into northern Illinois, and even down in the portions of the southern Smoky Mountains and Appalachians there, we do see that 30 to 36 inch range. All right, now in our final region on the map, which is the widespread white region, this is a very large region, and this is our cutoff. So I can't be here all day giving you all the way up to 200 inches. We'd be here forever, and I know you don't want that. I don't want that. So we're going to cut this off at 36 inches plus. Now I know for some of you that may be a little disappointing because you want to know exactly how much you're going to get, but it's really hard to identify because a lot of those higher regions are going to be in elevated areas that are really small and hard to pinpoint. But overall, if you're in this white region, I do expect you're going to be 36 inches plus. So that means you're going to see around at least 36 inches of snowfall this season, but we could also see up to 36 inches plus. So anything above 36 inches is possible. Obviously, the further south you go, the less likelihood you're going to see of around 100 inches. Even into the Appalachians, we're not really going to see those type of totals. But overall, the further north you go, you have a likelihood to see higher than that, maybe even up to 72 inches or 100 inches, depending on where you are in those higher elevations or the northern parts of the United States. But overall, to the south, we're going to keep things rather towards the 36-inch side. All right, I want to thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you did enjoy this video, I would ask you to consider subscribing for more US forecasts free of charge. And I would also ask you to consider following the Weather at a Glance official Facebook page for more inside information and complimentary personal forecasts when you message me on that Facebook page. A big thanks to our channel members, Chris, Betty, and Jay Case. Thank you so much for supporting what we do and all of what we do on the channel. And with that, I will see you in the next video.